epistemological faith isn't a thing because, at its root, epistemology is the study of human knowledge of the origin and beginnings of the foundation of things. And so, since it is rooted in knowledge, then they will say that there's no way that you can have knowledge, epistemology, knowledge, and faith. Because knowledge isn't faith and faith isn't knowledge. Faith is a belief that's not rooted in knowledge. For instance, I hate to offend, but you don't know that God exists. You don't know it. You believe. You don't know that you're saved. You believe that you are. It is not a knowledge because if it's knowledge, knowledge can always be proven by by some system or some way where you can actually see the results of it. And when it comes to the existence of God, well, I say that, and as soon as I said it, I shot myself in the foot because the way my mind works is I open my eyes every day and walk outside, and I know that God exists. I'm with you. I hope y'all just tracking with me that there are just some things that we don't know that we believe them to be so. And so many argue that epistemological faith is an oxymoron because you don't know faith. I err on the other side of it, which I don't even consider an error. I just recommend it because I believe that epistemological faith points to something that I like to call the God factor. And the God factor is the idea that certain things either don't make sense or seem impossible until God becomes a part of it. So I have faith, we have faith, and to some it may not make sense, but then when I consider the omnipotence of God, then it makes sense. What can't my God do? That's the God factor, that when you add God to the reality of it, and you guys know this to be true, it doesn't take much time or energy just to look over your life and see that there were some times where things should have gone a certain way. It made logical sense for it to wind up that way, but suddenly God inserted himself into your situation, and something that should have gone one direction wound up going another direction because God was there. That's the God factor. That's epistemological faith, being able to perceive things through God's eyes. But it's also more than that. It's also your ability to see what others cannot. It's the God factor, but it is also God vision, God focus. It's the ability to see potential and possibility where people only see problems. You know that, right? You've been in those environments, in those places, and relationships with people. They see problems, you see promise. You say, okay, man, I know how it appears, but I see and I believe that God can work it out. There's promise there. There is hope there. The challenge then, what you'll discover with people, is those people who see problems rather than promise is oftentimes it's because they are weakened in their faith, or even perhaps they do not know God. Because when you know God, God allows you to see anybody who believes in a God who can look at nothing and create everything has to be able to see promise, and no matter what the situation is. That's the God that we serve, the God who is not limited by space or time or any reality that we think might be true. God has no limitations. He's the factor, the overcomer. He gives us a different vision for how we see the world. But not only is it the ability to see what others cannot, because what happens in reality when the people aren't able to see what we see, oftentimes it creates a chasm, a gap between relationships with the people that you know. Because you see things through the lens of promise as opposed to problems. When you tell people that there's promise and not problems, people will think that there's something wrong with you.